Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we explore lessons from the past, inspiring Americans to create a better future. In West Virginia, we take a look inside a hotel/historical fortress designed to protect from nuclear war. And we visit the Los Angeles neighborhood where I grew up, where I'll take you behind the scenes of my search for belonging. But first, we turn to a wrong made right. A once iconic 1970s anti-pollution ad has been long criticized as a hurtful Native American stereotype. Nancy Chin explores how American Indians are taking control of the ad's future.
It was just a minute long, but the public service announcement immediately captured audiences when it first aired on Earth Day in 1971. A stereotype of a Native American character travels by canoe through a trash-strewn landscape. And as the dramatic music swells, a bag of junk thrown from a passing car lands at his feet, while a single tear streams down his cheek. The ad for the nonprofit Keep America Beautiful was meant to raise awareness about littering. But it also became a cultural milestone, airing for more than a decade and parodied in film and television for generations. Robert Thompson is a professor of television and popular culture at Syracuse University.
So this commercial was seen by a lot of people, and unlike a television episode, which airs once and then again in a rerun, this played over and over and over again. Growing up in the 1970s, if you were exposed to television at all, it would have been pretty impossible not to have seen this.
Keep America Beautiful announced it's donating the rights of the PSA to the National Congress of American Indians. Jenny Lawson is the CEO of Keep America Beautiful.
This ad doesn't play anymore on television. It hasn't played for quite some time on TV. So why is it important to do it even at this juncture?
As I said, I think it's important because the ad still gets a lot of attention. We had regularly received interest in whether it could be run for entertainment purposes, whether it could be run for research and education purposes. And so deciding the answers to that question really needed to move to the Native American people. And we are pleased that we were able to make that happen.
In a statement, the NCAI says the ad will only be used for historical context. This advertisement was inappropriate then and remains inappropriate today. NCAI looks forward to putting this advertisement to bed for good.
It reduces us to just one thing. That's what stereotypes do.
Ashley Minner-Jones is an assistant curator for history and culture at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian.
It perpetuates the stereotype that American Indian people are only of the past, that we only dress one way, look one way. Also, the man in the commercial appears to have no agency over his circumstances. That's just not, we're human beings. We do have agency. Ironically, at the time that this commercial was originally released, real Indian activists were occupying Alcatraz Island in the same body of water where this man is paddling.
Compounding the criticism of the ad, the fact that the Native American character was played by Iron Eyes Cody, a well-known actor from Hollywood westerns, who's not Native American.
He profited off of this false identity as he claimed to be Cherokee.
Now that the ad is out of circulation, Minner-Jones is hopeful for more accurate portrayals of Native Americans in popular culture.
When you only see depictions of Native people who are of the past, who look one way, who talk one way, it does something to you. It almost causes you to disappear. We're in an important moment now where Native people are beginning to control narratives about Native people and even produce mainstream narratives about Native people like Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, and that's just huge for us. We have authentic representation.
Coming up, we visit a world-famous hotel designed to withstand nuclear war. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. West Virginia's Greenbrier Resort has hosted more than half of all U.S. presidents. But for decades, it's also hidden a secret, an underground bunker. Scott McFarland shows us how this historic hotel undertook a new mission in the face of a modern emergency.
Hidden in the West Virginia mountains on an 11,000-acre estate, the Greenbrier Resort is an imposing white structure. But inside is draped in bright colors and classical pieces, a design originally from the 1940s that's intentionally bold.
There's no beige. There's no beige around here, you know.
Retired Greenbrier historian Dr. Robert Conti says it was an escape for the most powerful.
How many U.S. presidents have been here?
28 is a current count.
As far back as?
Martin Van Buren. James Monroe was here, but he was only Secretary of State at that point.
And for 30 years, the Greenbrier also had a secret. Congress ordered construction of a backup U.S. Capitol that would double as a nuclear fallout shelter below the resort.
We kind of forget how intense the Cold War was.
The United States and the Soviet Union.
And people at the time, particularly military people, weren't thinking if this is going to be used. They were thinking when it's going to be used.
They would convene here.
Right. It wasn't just hunker in the bunker. They were going to continue to function as the legislative branch.
Completed in early 1962, it includes an auditorium as the House chamber and bunk beds for all 535 members of Congress.
The people who operated the bunker had a mantra that they repeated over and over. We will maintain this at a constant state of operational readiness.
At a moment's notice.
At a moment's notice.
With an infirmary, police equipment, and a kitchen and dining room.
These are the original floors.
Yeah, these original floors. And, you know, it was actually designed this way to be sort of annoying and irritating. All these little black and white flooring. They didn't want people to sit around here. They had to do multiple seating. So eat and get out was kind of their philosophy.
Then congressional leaders Lyndon Johnson and Sam Rayburn approved the plan, considering the location strategic.
If war broke out, they assumed that Washington, D.C. would be a primary target. Why didn't they put this at a military facility? It would have been a lot easier. But Sam Rayburn and Lyndon Johnson, they wanted to maintain the independence of the legislative branch. They weren't going to put their facility on a military base that reports to the executive branch.
The construction work was unknown even to the staff of the resort.
How are you going to build a 112,000 square foot underground bunker without people noticing? Well, you build an addition to the Greenbrier on top of it, and you say, oh, we're just adding to the Greenbrier. We're just expanding the Greenbrier. And they were.
It operated until 1992, when it was declassified. But the hotel held prior roles.
The war isn't over yet.
During World War II, the government transformed the Greenbrier into an army hospital, and it also served as an internment camp for diplomats from enemy nations.
For generations, the bunker and the resort above it were this refuge in waiting, a theoretical safe place, until the day it was no longer theoretical.
The death toll from flooding in West Virginia is at least 20.
A 1,000-year flood ripped apart White Sulphur Springs in 2016, submerging the homes of many of the Greenbrier's employees, including the home of Mackenzie Moya, who worked in the Greenbrier as a teenager alongside her mother. Moya was pregnant when she lost her home.
It seems like it just happened yesterday, but then sometimes it still seems unbelievable that it happened. It was just an unimaginable scene to see the town that I had grown up in just in absolute ruin. Buildings were flattened, there were cars everywhere, trees down, houses missing. My dad calling me, I can't see your house anymore. I'm not sure where your mom is. He was on a roof at my neighbor's house.
Your house was lifted off the ground.
It came up off the foundation and floated about a football field away into my neighbor's house behind me.
Moya's mom managed to survive the torrent.
The two men that were with her about 6 hours held her with a rope around her in the tree, and she wasn't physically able to get completely into the tree, so some of her body was still in the flood waters as she was clinging to the tree for her life.
So the creek water comes all the way up to the bridge.
It was remarkable. There was water from the high ground over here, as far as you can see.
Architect and local business owner Tom Crabtree recalls the devastation.
How many people were lost?
In this community, there were 13 that perished.
The Greenbrier's grounds were wrecked, but its hotel remained intact.
Greenbrier opened their doors to anybody that was displaced by the flood, and it was a remarkable thing.
The rebuilding of White Sulphur Springs continues, but has already made the city stronger.
Initially, people invested in this town by donating funds for volunteers to build homes. All of the construction materials were purchased locally. All of the restaurants were serving food to hundreds of volunteers. That momentum continued, and Main Street, White Sulphur Springs today has no vacant storefronts, has no vacant space.
Encouraging its people to stay.
What kept me here was the opportunity to raise my daughter in the same place that I was raised in and played sports in and loved living. You hear about the beauty in West Virginia of like the landscape, but the sense of community that it brought really shows you the people in this area.
Saving a place that's long been America's safe house.
After the break, I share my personal, painful journey to understand my family's history and racial identity that offers lessons for us all. My story's next. To close our show, I share my story of searching for a sense of belonging in the hope that it will help others find their own. For decades, I've been my mother's secret, which taught me identity is shaped by those who are absent in our lives just as much as those who stand by our side. I sat down with my great friend and CBS Saturday Morning co-host Dana Jacobson to discuss my new memoir, Belonging, A Daughter's Search for Identity Through Loss and Love.
All this from Michelle Miller.
I know, for just for little me.
I know,
so
that's
used to
the thing.
tables being turned. I can't believe we're like here.
After 3 decades in TV broadcasting, Michelle Miller has developed a talent for telling stories.
I have never shied away from telling the stories of my people or other people cast in a forgotten light.
Who don't have the voice that you do, and you get to raise their voice.
I love telling those stories.
But when it came to sharing her own, Michelle needed to be convinced.
You know, it's just like, little old me, what would anybody want to read my story about?
In 2020, she gave viewers a glimpse of the answer in a personal essay reacting to the murder of George Floyd.
I was raised in South Central Los Angeles, the product of an interracial union that my father celebrated and my mother to this day does not acknowledge.
The piece caught the attention of publishers from HarperCollins, who encouraged her to write a book, something longtime CBS colleague Anthony Mason had been telling her to do for some time.
He said the opening line is, "I am my mother's secret." And I remember thinking, whoa, that is why I live out loud. Because for so long in the back of my mind, I've been somebody's secret. Someone's kept me small. I'm unacknowledged. It's like finding that place of belonging is what I always yearned for.
Michelle shares her journey to find it in the aptly titled Belonging, written with Rosemarie Robotham. It begins in Los Angeles. Born in 1967, the daughter of Ross Miller Jr., a prominent African-American surgeon who, as Michelle discovered in 2013, spoke to CBS News after he tended to Robert Kennedy the night he was assassinated in 1968.
There were a mass of blood, and he had head injuries. The extent of them could not be ascertained immediately.
Her mother is another story.
So my dad would always describe my origin in the third person.
Okay.
Your mother and your father fell in love, and they had you. And your mother couldn't stay with us, so that's why we live with Big Mama.
That's your dad's mom.
My dad's mother. The reality of it was that my father was married to someone else. I presume it was a very unhappy marriage based on a number of factors.
The relationship between Ross and Michelle's mother, who she refers to as Laura Hernandez in the book, began at the hospital where they both worked and resulted in an unexpected pregnancy. Michelle writes, "She went into labor early one morning and pushed me into the world. That afternoon, Laura discharged herself from the maternity floor and went home to her family.
She was Hispanic. She presented white. She never told anyone on that side of her family.
This photo of a 1-year-old Michelle taken in secret is the only one she has with both her parents. Until she was 6 months old, family friends in Alabama had cared for her. From that point on, her dad would be a constant presence in her life, but she was raised by his mother, Beatrice Burson Miller, Big Mama to Michelle.
She was 72, 73 years old when she came out to get me. She came out and she's like, that's my baby. That's my baby. She's coming home with me. This is where I grew up.
On a quiet street in the Vermont Knolls section of Los Angeles, better known as South Central.
I mean, I used to play football with my cousin Tommy on this lawn. And I just think about my neighbors, my neighborhood playmate Lois.
Yeah.
Lois, the Tolsons, the Ponders, Mrs. Holmes, Mr. and Mrs. Holmes, who used to take me to school.
You know my son Starling, remember?
Oh, Starling, yes, how's he doing?
You looking good, girl.
Even after all these years, there's at least one neighbor still there, Sterling Jones, a retired LAPD officer.
What do you remember about Michelle as a kid? Do you remember much?
She was a real disciplined young lady because her daddy didn't take no BS.
Oh, what happened, Michelle? What's happened? I'm just kidding.
As a child growing up here, Michelle says she struggled with her mixed race identity and features.
Most of the kids I went to school with at that time were brown skinned. And I was here, this light-skinned, kind of wavy-haired kid. And I was like, I just looked at my skin and I said, why couldn't you just be one or the other? Why do you have to be in between?
Her first sense of belonging came at Pacific Palisades High School, where she and other kids of color were bused, and after graduation, attending Howard University. She'd returned to Los Angeles to pursue a career in TV journalism. During the riots, following the acquittal of the officers involved in the Rodney King beating, Michelle was working as a reporter for the Orange County News Channel and living at the epicenter. She recalled a moment of hope amid the chaos.
I was coming home from church and I rounded the corner and I see all of these white cops chasing all of these black boys in the neighborhood. And when I pulled up, I realized they were playing a game of pickup basketball. Can you imagine like that happening here on our block?
Her local news career would eventually take Michelle to New Orleans,
All the best students, how you doing?
where she would also meet the man she'd start her own family with.
This is our wedding day. We're front page
You
of the
look
Times-Picayune.
happy.
It was, wasn't that happy?
Michelle, how on earth did you date the mayor?
There's a whole story, there's a whole chapter
Yeah, there is.
about that. And there's my
Your
dad.
dad's so handsome.
Yeah. And then my lovely children.
Mason.
My boy Mason.
Not your baby anymore.
He's not, look at him. And then Margot, she's a star setter for her volleyball team.
Neither one your babies anymore.
No.
Well, they're always your babies, I guess.
They
right?
are.
But it's a photo not on the wall. The decades spent searching for her mother's acceptance that is the defining through line of belonging. At their first of numerous clandestine meetings, Michelle writes her mother told her, "I can't acknowledge you publicly as my daughter. That's just how it has to be."
I feel sorry that she has been hiding all these years from this.
In the end, it's through Michelle's search for belonging that she hopes others may find theirs.
So many people have a version of the story, and in particular, so many people of color. And acceptance and belonging matter. They matter. And people have got to get with understanding that we belong to a race of people, human beings. We're a beautiful, mixed, diverse, incredible human race. But get over hating somebody. Get over feeling that, folks can't be accepting of one another for their differences. Get over that. Get over it. And it just burns me up that we don't. For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.